Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into something we use every single day, but probably don't think much about its incredible history: money. Where did it come from? And how did we get from trading seashells to tapping our phones to pay for coffee? Let's find out. Long before coins and dollar bills, there was barter. Imagine you're a farmer with a surplus of wheat, but you need a new pair of shoes. You have to find a shoemaker who not only has the shoes you want, but also happens to need wheat. This is what economists call a double coincidence of wants, and as you can imagine, it's pretty inefficient. What if the shoemaker wanted pottery, not wheat? You'd have to find a potter who wants wheat, trade for a pot, and then trade that pot for the shoes. It's a complicated and time-consuming process. To solve this problem, societies started using commodity money. This was basically any widely accepted item that had its own intrinsic value. Think salt, tea, seeds, cattle, and yes, even seashells. The ancient Romans, for instance, sometimes paid their soldiers in salt, which is where we get the word salary from the Latin salarium. In parts of Africa, cowrie shells were used as currency for centuries. These items were more convenient than pure barter, but they still had drawbacks. They could be perishable, hard to divide, and a pain to carry around. Imagine trying to buy a house with a herd of cattle. Not exactly practical. The next big leap came around 3,000 years ago with the invention of metal money. People started using lumps of precious metals like gold, silver, and copper. This was a huge improvement. Metal is durable, easy to carry, and you can easily divide it. But there was a problem. How do you know if that lump of gold is pure, and how much does it weigh? Every time you made a transaction, you'd have to bring out your scales and test the metal's purity. It was better than barter, but still not ideal. This is where coinage comes in. The first known coins were minted around 600 BC in Lydia, an ancient kingdom in what is now modern-day Turkey. These coins were made from a natural alloy of gold and silver called electrum. The genius of these coins was that they were stamped by a trusted authority, usually the king or the state. This stamp guaranteed both the weight and the purity of the metal. Suddenly, trade became much simpler. You no longer needed scales. You could just count the coins. This innovation spread like wildfire across the ancient world, from Greece to Rome to Persia and beyond. For over 1,000 years, coins reigned supreme. But as economies grew and trade expanded, carrying around bags heavy with gold and silver became cumbersome and risky. Merchants traveling long distances were easy targets for robbers. This problem led to the next revolutionary invention: paper money. The first true paper money appeared in China during the Song dynasty around the 11th century. Merchants, tired of hauling heavy strings of copper coins, started leaving their money with a trusted agent for safekeeping. In return, they received a paper receipt, a note promising to pay the bearer the equivalent amount in coins on demand. These notes, known as jiaozi, were much lighter and easier to carry. Eventually, the government saw the potential and took over the system, issuing official government-backed paper currency. When Marco Polo traveled to China in the 13th century, he was astonished by this concept of paper being as valuable as gold. He wrote about it extensively, but it took a few more centuries for the idea to catch on in Europe. In Europe, the ancestors of modern banknotes were promissory notes issued by goldsmiths in the 17th century. People would deposit their gold and silver with a goldsmith for safekeeping, and the goldsmith would issue a receipt for it. Soon, people realized it was easier to just trade these receipts directly rather than constantly going back to the goldsmith to withdraw the physical metal. These receipts were essentially the first European banknotes. Over time, banks, and eventually central banks, took over this role, issuing standardized notes that were widely accepted. For a long time, this paper money operated on the gold standard. This meant that every paper note was backed by a certain amount of physical gold held in a vault. You could, in theory, walk into a bank and exchange your paper money for its equivalent value in gold. This system provided a sense of stability and confidence in the currency. However, the gold standard had its limits. It restricted the amount of money a government could print, which could be a problem during economic crises or wars, when more money was needed to stimulate the economy or fund the war effort. Throughout the 20th century, country after country began to move away from the gold standard. The United States officially severed the link between the dollar and gold in 1971. This brings us to the modern era of fiat money. The word fiat comes from Latin and means "let it be done." Fiat money is currency that a government has declared to be legal tender, but it is not backed by a physical commodity. Its value comes from the trust and confidence that people have in the government that issues it. Every major currency in the world today, from the US dollar to the euro to the Japanese yen, is fiat money. Its value is based on supply and demand, the stability of the issuing government, and the strength of its economy. But the story doesn't end there. The digital revolution has ushered in the latest chapter in the history of money. The rise of credit cards, debit cards, and online banking in the late 20th century began to dematerialize money, turning it into electronic bits and bytes. We started swiping, tapping, and clicking to pay. Most of the money in the world today doesn't exist as physical cash. It's just numbers on a digital ledger. And now we're in the midst of another potential revolution, cryptocurrency. In 2009, an anonymous person or group known as Satoshi Nakamoto created Bitcoin, the first decentralized digital currency. Unlike traditional currencies, cryptocurrencies aren't controlled by any central bank or government. They operate on a technology called blockchain, a distributed public ledger that records all transactions. This has opened up a whole new world of possibilities and also a lot of debate. Are cryptocurrencies the future of money, a speculative asset, or something else entirely? Only time will tell. So there you have it. From bartering cattle to trading seashells, from minting gold coins to printing paper notes, and now to sending digital code across the internet. The history of money is a fascinating story of human innovation, driven by the simple need to make trade easier and more efficient. It reflects our social, political, and technological evolution. What will the next chapter look like? Perhaps in a few decades, we'll be paying for things in ways we can't even imagine today. What do you think is the future of money? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this journey through history, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more videos. See you in the next one.